Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome, believe it or not, to Intelligence Report, the Return of Intelligence Report for 2015. I, as usual, am Dean Esmay, Managing Editor and Operations Manager at A Voice for Men. And by the way, take a close look at this face, because this is the last time this year that you will see me without with a gap in my front teeth here. And the next time you see me, I'm getting my new tooth a week from today, so I will not be here next week. I will have a new tooth, and at the same time, the hair is coming off into a buzz cut, and a goatee is coming. Thank you so much to everybody who helped make that happen. So I also know any of you who are going, hey, wait a minute, why is he looking like that? Had to wait for the tooth to order, figured, and now that it's going to be in, and I'll be all set on Monday, a week from today, I'll get it all done at once, and I'll be a whole new man. I'll even try and get some video of that getting done for you. So anyway, here on Intelligence Report with A Voice for Men, with me as per usual is the notoriously evil and hateful and rapey Paul Elam, publisher, founder of A Voice for Men. Say hello, Mr. Elam.
But Dean, you say all of that like it's a bad thing.
No. It's what we all aspire to, really.
Okay. Just clear here.
Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. Good to see you back.
Yep, and we expect to make this a regular thing. Also joining us this week, and probably future weeks, is Paul Beatty of supportforguys.com, supportforguys, supportforguys.com. Paul Beatty is a substance abuse and general counselor for men and men's issues based out of Sydney in Australia. You may recognize him from previous interviews. He's sort of like Dr. T with a goatee and less hair. Say hi, Mr. Beatty.
Hi, everyone, and far less qualifications than Dr. T as well.
Well, qualified enough. He runs his own Sydney counselors group, and you give coaching and counseling services to men all over the world, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. A lot of my clients come from the US and surprisingly Canada. Who'd have thought that would be a problem? And Australia, Thailand, UK.
Nice. Well, it's good to see you. So now we have two gentlemen on this panel who have a background in counseling guys and dealing with substance abuse, amongst other things, although I understand, Paul, that substance abuse is kind of gone by the wayside. You only do some of that now, and you do other issues as well, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's mainly more general now. Self-esteem is a big one that I look at, and the fallout from after a relationship ends is a big one too.
Excellent. Well, check him out at supportforguys.com. We've always liked Paul. We're going to have a little turbulence because I'm going to have to figure out how to tell one Paul from the other. So I'm probably going to go Mr. Elam and Mr. Beatty until I figure something better. But
I think that should work on a permanent basis, Dean.
Mr. Elam, yes, Master Elam. Master Elam versus Mr.
Don't
Beatty.
call me Mr. Beatty, though.
I will not.
I like that one.
Master Beatty. We are very mature here at Intelligence Report, so I have no doubt that you'll be hearing nothing but the highest level of...
I got to interrupt for a second, Dean. I got to complain about something, and I think the audience should know about this. I realized as we came on for pre-show to do our discussion a little bit that now I am stuck with not just one but two vaporizer fiends.
You are.
Can you gentlemen hold up your hardware
right.
so that the class can see?
I have two as well, so we're both twice as cool as you.
Yes, I know. And so when you guys see these, like the clouds of smoke behind these guys coming up and vapor, don't expect sitar music or purple lights, okay? These are not swamis back there. They're not going to come out with the total and complete enlightenment. All of that is just puffery from their hardware.
I know we're supposed to be talking about serious things, and we will, but I remember I had one of these a few years ago, and I was talking to a school counselor, and it was a little smaller, and I was angry. We had something angry we were discussing, and she didn't know what it was, but she told me at some point, what is that? I've seen angry people before, but I never thought I'd see smoke literally coming out of their ears and nose. I'm like, no, it's a vaporizer. I'm not that mad at you. But anyway, so as per usual, we have three main stories that we're going to talk about this week. I want to open up with finally, well, no, not finally, it happens. I know we get into the left wing versus right wing. People are obsessed with that, and we know that ideological feminism tends to emanate from the political left. So we see a lot of stupid coming from that part of politics. We'll pick on the right wingers some other day. I want to shout out some intelligence coming out of what would generally be called the political left this week. Emily Yoff in Slate magazine, which is a fairly staid, mainstream left-of-center opinion journal, has a review of a movie called The Hunting Ground. And I have to give her props not only for common sense, but even the audacity to just speak common sense. Now, in case anybody hasn't heard, The Hunting Ground is a new documentary film that is making the rounds, which essentially portrays American, and by extension, college campuses in other country, but American campuses in this case, is as basically hunting grounds for rapists. And running with the idea that 1 in 5 college women will be raped on campus, and telling breathless stories of women who supposedly were sexually assaulted and bravely come forward to talk about what happened to them. Emily Yoff, I'm sorry, did I call it Yost earlier? It's Yoff or Yoffie. My apologies, Ms. Yoff. I'll assume it's pronounced Yoff. She also writes the Dear Prudence column, by the way. Basically takes this film to task. She notes that from her own investigations, the 1 in 5 claim is bogus. Thank you, somebody in the mainstream finally having the guts, besides, I guess, George Will, having the guts to call BS on the 1 in 5 number, because it is. She even rightly notes that that 1 in 5 is based overwhelmingly on students. The overwhelming majority of that supposed 1 in 5 are students who that answered this question. During the past 12 months, have you given in to sexual play, fondling, kissing, touching, but not intercourse, when you didn't want to because you were overwhelmed by the other person's arguments or pressure? And that's where almost all of that 20% comes from. Which is like, if that's your definition of sexual assault, then I know more than one man who's been sexually assaulted. Thank you, Emily, for noting that obvious truth. She notes some other things that are problematic with the film, such, and this is a film I'm going to make sure not to see. I mean, supposedly I should draw my own conclusions, but as soon as, normally I would watch a film before giving my own opinion on it, but just based on the write-ups and what I've read and what Miss Yoffie here says, I'm not seeing it because I don't want the filmmaker getting my money. I'm sorry. At no point in the film, according to Yoffie, are the men who are accused, oh, by the way, all the victims are women, at no point are the men accused allowed to give their side of the story at all. One of the men is Jameis Winston, a football star here in the U.S., and the filmmakers actually have the audacity to suggest that Jameis Winston, that the NFL, the National Football League in the United States, should reconsider allowing Jameis Winston to play football for them, based solely on this woman's testimony. And even Emily Yoffie notes that this woman's testimony, amongst other things, she claims she was drugged by Jameis and 2 of his friends, but the film doesn't mention what Yoffie does, which is that 2 different toxicology reports failed to show any evidence that she'd been drugged. None of that makes it into the film. They are trying to ruin young Jameis Winston's football career. I hope he sues the filmmakers, and I hope he wins. multiple investigations have been concluded that this young man is almost certainly innocent. And what's nice to see is not that this film got made, but that already, even in a feminist stalwart magazine like Slate, somebody's calling bullshit. And well done, Emily Yaffe for calling bullshit. I go ahead and see oh, and this is on Slate's Double X as well. So, good for Double X for running it, good for Slate for running it, good for Emily Yaffe for running it. Anybody have any comments on that, Mr. Beatty or Mr. Elam?
It's interesting what you're saying there about left and right, Dean, because I would probably be more left than right, marginally. And so I've been an enemy of everyone, I think, because most people on the left don't agree with my stance on men's issues, and people on the right don't agree with my stance on anything else. So it's interesting that this has come out of left field, so to speak. It's pretty good move, I think.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I actually think, at least in the United States, the Democratic Party, and I also believe that the Labour parties in the UK and Australia are going to be having to look hard at who they've got in their ranks in the coming years, because there's too much feminist swill.
For sure.
That's really hurting their politics and their ability to actually help the working class people they supposedly exist to help.
That's it. That's the idea. That's where it's supposed to come from, and that's really been lost in this whole fog of feminist ideology.
The working man.
That's what's going to happen. The left is going to be affected the same way by feminists eventually that the right is finding is not working so well for them with the fundamentalist that they allowed to co-opt their movement and speak for it, because now they basically they killed classic liberalism by doing this. Any vestiges of actual conservative ideology that was in the Republican Party was waylaid by a bunch of fundamentalists that were fine with small government and government lack of interference in personal lives until it came to enforcing their religious morality on the population, and then they invited the government in with guns and badges to make sure that gay people didn't marry, to make sure that an individual who wanted to smoke marijuana would go to prison for doing so, to basically lay waste to everything that they have opposed on a moral basis. The feminists are doing the same thing on the left, that they are coming in with their social justice message, and often we see it expressed in things like this film, which is straight out of a 1936 Berlin propaganda movie house in terms of what it intends to do to a targeted population and maligning them. It's very, very, that's not Godwin's law, people. That's just unfortunate reality that we've got them making films that to depict a culture in a way that it does not exist, to create a threat narrative that does not exist. Do women get raped on campus? Yes, so do men. Men are sexually assaulted on campus too. Does it happen to 20% of them before they finish school? No, it doesn't. That's a lie. And it's a lie designed for movies like this to make money off of sensationalizing a problem and for ideologues to further their agenda. Excuse me, guys. Somebody was trying to call me. That seems to happen every hangout, but I've just this is nothing new. People call us all the time. Sometimes, Paul, you're going to experience as you talk more on this program. If you now that you've admitted that you're left-leaning, there will be articles written by MGTOW Plus people and videos done and commentary all over the parts of the manosphere that will say that you are a leftist feminist plant. Sit here.
I'm a Trojan. I'm a Trojan. I'm just coming in.
That's right. That's right.
In a big cock-shaped horse, and then I'm just going to burst out just with a big labia. That's it.
Yep. And of course, I get called a right-wing nutcase because my inclinations politically are slightly to the right of center. I'm socially probably a lot more liberal than some people. Fiscally, I'm a lot more conservative. And constitutionally, I'm very conservative, as a matter of fact. I do like small government. I like the government out of our personal lives, our private lives, out of our bedrooms, pretty much out of everything. I would like to see them to eat. I'd like to see government employees eat enough to stay alive and show up at their bullshit jobs, and leave it at that.
Okay, Ron Swanson.
Yes, but just the same. So I'll be called a right-wing nutcase. I'm often called a left-wing nutcase. But in the true sense of the word, I am what I think probably all three of us are, political pragmatists. We look at the realities on the ground. We look at possible solutions and look at what might work rather than what fits our ideology.
That's right. What is achievable with the tools we have at hand? Gosh, what a very masculine way of looking at it.
Oh, well, we need to change that then. Look at that. I mean, we're 10 minutes into one program, and Paul Beatty's already wiped out every bit of influence Dr. T ever had in here with her vagina.
That's right. Well, I just want to make one more point about this film, The Hunting Ground. I'm quoting here Emily Offey, quoting the movie. Diane Rosenfeld of Harvard Law School analogizes that if the parents of male students were told their sons had a 1 in 4 or 5 chance of being victim of a drive-by shooting at college, mom and dad would think twice about sending them. Well, yes, Ms. Rosenfeld, Professor Rosenfeld, quite so. So why are you even allowing young women onto Harvard campus until you get that shit straightened out? Oh my God! Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Notice how the 1 in 4 has returned. It's either 1 in 5 or 1 in 4. I've even seen 1 in 3, which is always to me like, okay, so it's not so much a statistic as a negotiation.
But the other question I've seen in a study that I think leads to that 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 is one of the questions. It's directed to men. If there were no consequences and you could completely get away with it, would you force a woman to do something that would you force a woman to do something? Now, it doesn't say anything about sex in the question, but it's a completely nonsensical question. You know, if someone said to me, Paul, without any consequence, if you could nick a Bugatti Veyron and drive it around for a day, would you? I would probably say yes to that. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and nick a car right now.
No, in fact, it doesn't even mean that if you actually were in that situation that you would do it. You're being asked cold, you know, would you do something? Just like right now, I could say, yeah, I'll jump out of an airplane, and then maybe change. That's not a good example because I've done that. But yeah, I'd steal $1 million if I could get away with it, and then my conscience might get the better of me, and I might say no. So that statistics was completely without meaning. I know the one you're talking about. Something like 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 men said probably they would make a woman do something if there were no consequences. And it was all...
That sounds like hard science to me, guys.
I know. Yeah. It wasn't even, would you make her have sex? Would you just make her do something she didn't want to do?
Yeah, because I guarantee you at least 3/4 of those guys, probably more, were thinking about sandwiches.
Show me your tits, whatever.
You see, I don't think they'd have much of a story if they asked the question, and even, you know, even asking a question, but asking a guy, okay, with the clipboard, okay, would you actually ever really rape a woman? No.
Yeah.
There's no story.
The fact is that men don't want to rape women. If men did want to rape women, we could go on about this for a long time, but I mean, there are stories. Go back and read Lysistrata, which is great Greek literature. It's a stupid comedy, but I mean, even there, okay, it's a stupid comedy about how the women of, I think it was Athens, decided to force the men to do something by refusing to have sex with them. And the women, even then, this is a 3,000-year-old player, like, yes, because most men don't want to rape their wives, so if you're not willing, he'll do something so you become willing. Men aren't rapists, guys. I'm sorry, they're just not by nature.
Oh, well, and also they should point out that I forget who it was, there was some feminist here in Texas that after some piece of legislation was introduced that they didn't like, encouraged all Texas women not to fuck their partners if they voted for this bill. And so it presupposes, at least, that no means no, that these men out there who hear a no about sex, these women acknowledge that they have control over whether or not that they engage in sex, that it is not a decision made by a man. They're just absolutely being shitty and pretending like it exists in one place and doesn't exist in another.
Yeah, I mean, the whole college campus thing is something that I keep an eye on because Australia quite often gets starts in America, and I see the affirmative action spread to Hawaii. I read the clause in there, and I don't know if this is the case in California, but they've added something in there which says, a woman can't give consent by intoxication or fraud. It's also got the word fraud in there. So I'm just wondering, does this now mean that if you tell a fib to get laid, you're a rapist? That's the kind of thing that I'm really concerned about coming out.
Well, Paul, there was the guy in Israel, an Arab man. I think this has a lot to do more with other tensions in that region of the world than it does necessarily with sex. But there was a man, an Arab man, who told an Israeli woman that he was Jewish, that he was, I guess, an Israeli Jew. And they had sex, and they convicted him of rape because if she had known that he was an Arab, she would not have had sex with him. Absolutely insane thing to do, but it did happen. So, one of the things is like with modern feminism and modern gynocentrism in particular, if we can imagine a negative result, it's probably already happened to somebody.
No lie. No lie. And what also gets driven home for me is that these ideologues who are wanting to protect the women under all, I mean, it's like, I don't know, protect the women. It's like this instinct or something that just like goes past all common sense and logic. Like, did they need your protecting? Did you ask that one first? But
how traditionalist of them.
Yeah, no lie. I see that down in Oz, speaking of Oz, Tony Abbott, the PM, and Bill Shorten have been getting a little close with Emma Watson, our heroine of He for She. Tell us a little bit about that, Mr. Beatty.
Well, Emma Watson's probably a little bit older and a little bit hotter since she made the address to the United Nations, and Women's coming on March the 8th. And it looks like our two leaders, Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, and Bill Shorten, the Labour leader, both of whom are completely useless, are going to be asked to sign something that says that basically we're going to be nice to women. So it's just ridiculous.
They're going to sign the pledge. We're
going to take action.
Smash bitches. Okay.
We're going to take action against all forms of violence and discrimination faced by women and girls. Gender equality is not only a woman's, it's a human rights issue that requires my participation. And there's a couple of interesting things I spotted in this article, which is on our Canberra Times, written by Virginia House-Egger. One is, it's blatantly obvious that women, a lot of the time, really hate each other. Because she starts off criticising Emma Watson, probably because she's just young and hot.
I'll tell you, man. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I know a number of guys in the manosphere who are like, women have an in-group bias that trumps all things, and I'm like, no, they have an in-group bias in some ways. In other ways, they can't stand each other. Sorry.
Here we go. Cynical naysayers, me, who are not the journalist writing, who are not convinced that a beautiful, privileged 25-year-old actor such as Watson was the right choice of person to lead he have been proven terribly wrong. So she obviously wanted the the polka dot wearing fat lesbian to stand up in front of the United Nations instead of Hermione Granger with her mangina castrato or whatever she wants to say up there.
Now, okay, so Bill Shorten is would he be called the shadow prime minister, or?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. Yep, yep. And there's a great bit of feminist logic in here. At the G20, the Prime Minister agreed to close the gender gap in the workforce participation by 2025. For Australia, that would mean creating 300,000 new jobs for women over the next 10 years, which would increase gross domestic product by an estimated $25 billion. So I don't know why we just don't create these jobs, you know? That's an easy thing to do, isn't it?
And why don't they use phrasing that's a little more accurate, which is force women into the workforce whether they want to be there or not?
That's right. Yes.
Yes, and better yet,
lazy ass bitches.
Force them into lower paying, softer jobs that don't require as much skill, so they can congregate there and bitch about how they're not getting paid enough or are being paid fairly. That's the plan. Is that, and that's exactly what happened in the past, and why we still have, we're going to be talking on the next Manstream about this absolutely incredible display at the Oscars in the United States, where we have Meryl Streep and another like multi-gazillionaire, what's her name, Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, and Meryl Streep jumping up and applauding rabidly about the need for women to make as much as men. And then when they left, their male drivers and their male escorts and their male bodyguards escorted them out of the building into their Rolls Silver Arrow, and they carted off down the road of oppression back to their penthouses. Absolutely insane.
I love when she says, "We, us women, we've fought for equality for other people." No, you fucking haven't. You just
have.
They didn't even fight for equality for women.
No. Oh, I still have to admit that I'm a Hermione Granger fan, but that's just because I'm a nerd.
In which film was it allowed? Were you allowed to think that she was hot? Because like Chamber of Secrets, no.
No, you're right there. You're right there. It has to be late in the films that I have to admit to having a. But that's all right.
And that's it. Let me add one more thing while I'm thinking about it, because I'm old and I forget things. But I think that it should be pointed. We can point out that if you go all the way back to the movement to create a prohibition in this country. You have women asserting sexual privilege, saying expressions like "lips that touch liquor will never touch mine." That goes all the way back to the prohibitionists, to the Women's Temperance Foundation that marched and eventually got alcohol banned because they wanted to control men's habits. They wanted to control their drinking, so they called in the government. Under the power of their pussy. Do not be mistaken, folks. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the power of the vagina saying, if you want in here, you better do this or that. And men have been doing that for hundreds of years. Don't fool yourself. That's what you're seeing now in modern feminism, too. When you see them trotting out that canard of 1 in 5 and everything else, it's bullshit that men will put up with because they don't want to get cut out of that holy green between the legs.
I'm actually going to push back on you on that one, Paul.
You go right ahead. I can take it.
I think Paul's bang on.
I don't think he is. Well, I think he's sort of on, but he's sort of not. I think it's even more. I'll go find you a picture of Carrie Nation, the most famous woman behind banning alcohol in the United States, and if you think anybody wanted any of that snatch, you're insane.
No, that ain't got nothing to do with it. It got nothing to do with it. Let me tell you why. I don't think anybody would be influenced away from pornography based on the appearance of Andrea Dworkin, which is the second wave's greatest anti-pornography crusader. That's not the point. The point is that these women at the top of these movements, and they are almost always unbelievably ugly, like Sojourner Truth and Carrie Nation, Andrea Dworkin. You look at these women, Mayor, we have an expression in Texas, she'd make a freight train take a dirt road. And that has been the general appearance of these women at the top for a long time. It's still true now. If you ever take a close look at Rebecca Watson, you'll see what I mean. It's not pretty, folks. But the fact of the matter is that female voice at the top turning around and getting echoed by women down the line and being repeated out into the population is what drives men to say, I mean, I guarantee you, everybody in this conversation has looked at porn. Everybody in any conversation you've ever had in your life has looked at porn at one time or another in their lives. And there will be most men in the population, if they're in a group of women and the subject of pornography comes up, you know what they're going to say? Well, that's just for guys that can't handle the real thing. That's what they're going to say because they are trying to impress the poontang, which is basically running all the gender politics in our times.
I don't need to. I'm married.
What's that? You cut out there a little bit, Paul. What was that?
I don't need to masturbate. I'm married.
Yes, of course.
I think that men's desire to please and get the approval of women goes all the way back to childhood and isn't always necessarily sexual. But you know what? We can argue that another day. Now we've already a half hour in and we haven't gotten to our favorite pussy sniffing, pussy begging, sniveling, dishonest, pimping little media whore, Jeff Sharlet, who wrote one of the most horrendously hateful, bigoted, and stupid pieces on the men's rights movement I've ever seen. I'm going to state now for the record, from the minute I met him, I really didn't trust him, but in case, because I've had people ask me, well, why did you cooperate? It's because the media all hates us. I'm always polite to reporters. I give straightforward and honest questions. I even go out of my way to help them make connections to people. I assume 9 times out of 10, they're still going to be dishonest, skeevy little assholes. Because guess what? If they write about us, we win. So, Paul, Elam, I believe you had a few choice words regarding this story in GQ.
Yeah, let me start out by saying that I'm just kind of sad. You know, I'll be not over the outcome of Charlatan's writing, but because we do. You're right. We expect this. We know what they're going to do. We know there's this unspoken deal. Okay, dude, I know you're here to take your best shot and do your damage and be sloppy and yellow and all that. And I'm going to be polite while you're doing that. And then you'll go on about your way. And we'll attract people to the site who find out you're a liar and stick with us. Been working all along. Works still great today. But I want to say that I'm sad over the quality of the writing. Honestly, I went and looked at some of Charlotte's work. I read a couple of photo essays that he did. Where the writing, I got to say, is exceptional. His ability when he's not on an agenda and when he's perhaps doing something he honestly believes in is that he's really a very solid, good, decent writer. But the writing in this piece was so substandard. It was just absolutely... It was like he said, okay, I have to feed the monkeys at the zoo. I know I'm feeding them shit. And he just sort of, in perfunctory fashion, threw a bunch of slop out there and walked away from it like he never owned it. I'm a big believer. One of the quotes that has driven me all of my writing life is by Cyril Connolly, which is that it's better to write for yourself and have no public than it is to write for the public and have no self. And I really believe in that quote. I really believe that's an important part of being a real writer as opposed to people like Charlotte. But Jeff, it was sad. It was sad. I know that you didn't have your heart in that because you could tell because your writing, your ability to write was not in it. It wandered, it was sloppy, it was poorly worded in places. And now we can get to the lies you told and the dishonesty. But first, I'm sad for you that you sold out your craft for this in order for a paycheck, and that's disgusting. The other part was, go ahead.
I was going to say, I used to do freelance writing, and more than once had a piece that I wrote and was paid for be so completely edited that I did not recognize it when it came back, and I was actually embarrassed my name was on it. I will leave out the possibility. I will leave out some sort of hope, the possibility that something like that happened to Charlotte. In fact, I'll tell you something that I haven't mentioned before, Paul, Elam. This will interest you. Before the show I did with Erin Pitsey on Saturday, she had just read Jeff Sharlet's piece. She said it's one of the most awful things she'd ever read. And she says, I'm convinced a woman wrote most of this. Don't know what to make of that, but she didn't think that Jeff Sharlet had written most of the piece, just based on the style and based on her own experience with what female editors will do when they don't like what a reporter has come back with.
Well, hold on there.
His name is still on it. I'm just saying.
His name is still on it, and it was not a female editor that had him put plants in the conference in the forms of Albert Calabrese and Blair Braverman, and that's the second part of the story. One of the fundamentals in journalism is that you write about stories that happen. You don't create a story and then write about it. That's a no-no. That's really, really, really shitty ethics. And what Jeff Sharlet did was that he recruited a feminist plant, somebody to send into the conference and flirt around staff and show her ass. She wore some short shorts and was wiggling her shit around all the place. And then, of course, when somebody flirted with her, they turned around and turned that into a rape narrative or a potential rape narrative emanating out of the conference, which is fucking just, oh, man, dude, you ought to be bit slapped for that. You really should. The other thing is that he brought in a character, Albert Calabrese, and I'm going to say from the beginning, I don't know this gentleman. I know nothing about him. I never heard of him. Nobody at AVFM ever heard of him. But somehow Jeff managed to find one guy with a rap sheet for some sort of statutory violations against minors of a sexual nature. Again, I don't know all the details of that. It does not look pretty. I will tell you that I've accepted that much. It doesn't look pretty. But he basically, we tracked down the records. He bought a ticket one day before the conference, and Jeff already knew about him and was right on him like stink on shit as the conference started, and was using him to, he took this guy and threw him at the honey badgers and tried to elicit them making sympathetic statements about his circumstances, which they basically told Charlotte, you notice that wasn't in the article, it's because Allison Tiemann and the other honey badgers told him to go fuck himself.
There's even more to that story. I've been we watched the front page of A Voice for Men. We are not going to be using the front page of A Voice for Men to chase down Albert Calabrese and embarrass him. But no. There's more to say there, and more on how he was used, and I'll be writing about that. But I can tell you this much: Charlotte lied about how Calabrese found them. No, Charlotte brought him to lunch and confronted the honey badgers with him and made them do 50 questions with him. They didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want to persecute him either, but they were all got written testimony from 4 of them saying, we told Charlotte we don't believe anything this guy believes. None of that made it into his article. Okay.
Right.
Wrong. The Albert guy wasn't very happy about it either. So this, again, is journalistic manipulation. It's incredibly unethical. It's incredibly dishonest. And even if this Albert fellow does have a record and sexual, he has a thing for minors, whatever, that's not something we approve of. But using even a guy like that way, that's not journalism. I don't know what you call that, but it's certainly not journalism.
Well, we didn't title this the Unctuous Jeff Sharlet for nothing.
Well, I had a shower this morning, and after I read the article, I had to have another shower. It was just the greasiest immature piece of shit I've read for a long time. And what you're saying about manipulation there is, if you guys are the bunch of big bad cunts that everyone says you are, then you don't have to go and make shit up. You can just go there, observe, and write down and say, well, yeah, they are a big bad bunch of cunts because they were doing this and this and this. But that didn't have to inject controversy somehow into your conference. The whole thing's just bullshit.
More to the point, too, if I were genuinely a misogynist who hated women, for example, why wouldn't I just say, yes, you're correct, I hate women. Stop, they're awful. They just disgust me. Fuck them. And if I thought all women were good for was sex, if I genuinely thought that, why wouldn't I just say that?
Well, because you're trying to raise money off of an agenda by conning the likes of Aaron Pizzey and Senator Ann Cools and Dr. Tara Palmatier and Karen Strawn and Allison Tiemann and Suzanne McCarley and Janet Bloomfield and Hannah Wallen. And I mean, we're really good at this. You got to admit, we actually practice an open rape culture, a culture that has women making sandwiches when they're not being raped. And all of these women that have signed on to this and endorsed us across the planet, they've all just been fooled.
Especially Helen Smith, too. That is just one global wench. I'll tell you, she can't see her ass from a hole in the ground. She just can't see the raving misogyny in her husband, let alone us, right?
Well, yeah, and when you look at all the women that here in that group that have doctor or senator or something like that in front of their names, you know, we're just that good, folks.
All you can do is dig around and find the one guy who's a sex offender and put him up that nobody's heard of and put him up front and center and even embarrass him. Because
and I'm gonna say something here, Dean. I'm gonna again. There's something else to address here that is really important, and then there's I want to talk about the hotel room incident for the great hotel room, almost rape allegation that happened. But here's the deal, and what these guys don't get and don't even care about, and I can promise you, Jeff Sharlet doesn't give a shit who pays the ultimate price for what he does. That all of these hack journalists, we've had Mother Jones, Vox.com, BuzzFeed, and GQ all launch really nasty, shitty attack articles with unethical journalism all in February. All happened in 1 month. We were supposed to start, you know, I guess stop working after that, or it was supposed to discourage us. But one of these days, what's going to happen, I promise you, is that somebody like Mr. Calabrese or Sage Gerard or somebody else, because they have been used by these people and set up this way, is going to get hurt. Some fuckknuckle out there with a gun is going to decide, I need to protect society from person X over here, and something terrible is going to happen. And I'll tell you something, Jeff Sharlet, if that happens to somebody and they come to me looking for where you are, I'm going to help them find you. If their family comes to me looking for where you are or somebody like you is, after somebody's been hurt, they've been wounded, crippled, maimed, disfigured because of your willingness to sell out every journalistic value you might have ever once entertained just to make a buck and to get some pats on the head from some feminist cunts that you want to please, then I will help them find you and wash my hands of it. I'll turn over everything I have as long as to do so would not be criminal. The part of this, I'm fine. You guys write your dirt. I don't give a shit. It's wonderful, actually, because we've grown so much off of it. But write your dirt, put it out there. It sends people to the site. But one of these days, one of you yellow hacks is going to get somebody hurt, and there's going to be some payback coming, and I'm not going to participate in it, but I'm going to sit back and watch and eat some popcorn because you're going to be collecting what you got coming to you.
They really don't think that somebody's going to get hurt by what they're writing and by these lies they're putting out. And they don't care. It's all about money. I mean, the phrase I frequently use is media whores. And by the way, that's not a gendered insult. There's more. as many male media whores as female. I mean, Jeff Sharlet, for example, is a whore. So is Adam Serwer.
He's also a cunt.
So Bender. Yeah, he's also a cunt. I mean, really sad and pathetic man looking for women's approval and not caring who he hurts with what he writes. And that's all. But it really doesn't matter, because to me it all smacks of an establishment that is desperate to hold on to control of a narrative that they're losing, and they're going to continue losing. If I hear one more time that women owe feminists because feminists won them the right to vote, I'm just going to have to blow my own brains out, because that ain't true.
It was Hollywood actresses, wasn't it, that did the vote?
You know, the entire subject of how women got the vote is, we could devote an entire hour to it, but let's just put it real short. It varied from country to country. The right to universal right to vote was something that evolved over time. Most men didn't have it. Most women had it. There was a time when some women had it when most men didn't. It was never a black and white. Women didn't have it this day, and then they did have it that way. It was an evolution between class and race and sex, and, you know, there were women voting while there were boys who couldn't vote, dying in trenches in World War I. So it's never been as simple as that whole women won the right to vote because feminism. Never went
Dave,
like that.
We are not interested in hearing that side of the story. It's really simple. In the United States, women got the vote in 1920. It was after black men could vote. Can you believe they let black men vote before a white woman could? You'll hear feminists make that point all the time.
And that's bullshit, because there were black men who couldn't vote in this country all the way until 1965, you stupid bitches.
I just thought I got my American history completely fucked the wrong way around there for a second.
I'm sorry, look up something called the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There were millions of black people not able to vote in this country until 1965. Okay? And by the way, as a matter of public record, the suffragettes were mostly white women who kicked black women under the bus in order to secure the vote for themselves. That's also history, which is not to say those suffragettes shouldn't have gotten the vote. It is to say, stop with the childishly simple narratives, please.
Well, don't you know it's the childishly simple narratives that raise the Buckies there, Dean, and help people feel oppressed? I mean, again, that was the point about J-Lo and Meryl Streep jumping up in $6,000 Gucci gowns, screaming rabidly about equal pay for women. I mean, it's if you want to maintain that kind of crazy-ass attitude in a culture, you got to sell it with childishly simple narratives.
I will say something horrifically sexist, though. J-Lo was really hot in that dress.
Well, J-Lo's always been hot. I mean, that's nothing new. J-Lo's hot. She's hot. And,
She's hot.
And that impresses my dick and little else.
I can't help it. My dick controls me on that one. Not really, but whoo, she's hot.
Yes, she is. Okay, but we're not going to get into a J-Lo worship around here. Let me talk for a minute. I want to address for a minute what happened in the hotel, where I was in the hotel. Now, here's the scenario painted by Mr. Sharlet in his piece that he brings Blair Braverman. What a great name, Braverman. Oh, I love it. It's almost like she has like iconic female warrior status already. She walked in the room like Laura Croft. But he brings her in. He's supposed to show up with a bottle of Maker's 46 because I told him that was the entrance fee to my room. Notice I didn't say I had to have somebody to rape or that I needed a bag of cash at the door. I said, are you good
Make
for
sure you kittens.
Yes. So he shows up without the 46, and I asked him at the door. I said, and it turns out later, by the way, he was running his mouth to Dr. T and saying, you guys drink up. It's all on GQ. It's all on GQ. Then he split. He walked the bill, and Dr. T got stuck with it. She paid for all of it, including that sorry bastard's drinks. I mean, Man, dude, take that back. The saddest thing is not your writing. The saddest thing is that you're a sleaze bag that walks out on a bill so that the people you're attacking can pay it for you. I'm sure that made you feel really smart. Where I come from, that just makes you look really trashy. But anyway, he brings in this girl, Blair Braverman. This is the same girl that he had sent out to try to bait Sage Gerard, shaking her ass all over the place and saying, here, I'm a kinky girl, you want to talk to me?
Cleavage. Yep, I saw it.
Yep, the whole 9 yards. She did that. So he brings her up to the room, and I asked her what brought her here. And she said she was curious, and then I said, well, she said she indicated that some friends had cautioned her about it, and I asked what they told her, and she said that if I came here, I'd get raped. Well, and I'm starting to think, okay, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're in the chief rapist hotel suite, surrounded by people you don't fucking know, and your reaction to saying, if you go there, you'll get raped, is to go find the chief rapist and knock on his hotel room door at 1 o'clock in the morning and come in and sit down. God, any of you guys got a reaction to that?
I wasn't there because I don't drink, so I was busy already asleep.
Just assume I'm telling you the truth.
I assume you're telling me the truth, and I already know from the other women who were there that it just didn't quite go down that way. But the correct reaction in a civil society would have been for you to be offended and say something like, fuck you, get out of my room. Instead, you chose to laugh like a gentleman, and you were punished for that. I actually think that in a civil world, really, the correct answer, I'm not schooling you or anything, the correct answer should have been, do you actually believe that? And if so, I need you to leave now.
Well,
what do you think, Beatty?
The other thing I think there is, if all her friends are absolutely convinced that by going to this conference she's going to get raped, and she's got fear that she's going to get raped herself, then what's the motivation? It's, well, sod it, I'm a woman, and I don't care if I'm going to get raped. I should be able to go anywhere I bloody well like and not get raped, and that's my right as a woman.
Yep, and she had none of that. I mean, of course, the fact is that she didn't have friends that told her she would get raped. She had Jeff Sharlet, who told her, why don't you come to this thing? I'll show you where to go. You can go gather intelligence for me, flirt with them a little bit, stick your ass out there, show them your tits, and if anybody reacts, by the way, human males normally react when they're sexually stimulated, then we can report that as being rapey, and which is exactly what she did. That was her whole point all along. To do that. So when she came in the room, I mean, she came in the door lying. And again, look, folks, I'm not whining about this. We've been doing this shit for 6 years. It's nothing new. It's business as usual at A Voice for Men. The only concern I have is that we are getting to the point that this stuff has the potential to actually cause real harm to people, because it is intended to do exactly what we're accused of doing, which is to appeal to a radical element in society to step up and take violent action. So what they're accusing us of doing is exactly what they are doing. We are as nonviolent and adamant about it as we can possibly get. We show people the door all the time for even making a slightly inappropriate remark related to violence, because we oppose it that much. But these guys are looking to create a threat narrative, and they know that there's always a weaker-minded element in society that will reply to a threat narrative with a violent reaction. She sat there with us and talked, and my reaction to her thing about getting raped was, I said, okay then, let's get this show going. We're going to do a rape, let's get it done. I made a joke out of it. Factory yelled, get the camera. Get the video camera to his girlfriend. Jeff used interesting words to report that. He said when Factory said that, his girlfriend giggled weakly, W-E-A-K. Now, the implication of the use of the word weakly is that she was either nervous about what he was saying or that she was laughing only in support because she was uncomfortable with the situation. She laughed her fucking ass off. She knew what a joke it was. So did Jeff. So did Blair Braverman. And again, then Jeff spins that down into, yeah, it was just a joke, right? Just two middle-aged men joking with about rape with a young girl in their hotel room at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, the bitch that you brought there at 1 o'clock in the morning, you fucking moron. If GQ readers don't notice this shit, they got to be a lot dumber than I ever thought they were. And apparently, a lot of them are.
We're about out of time here, and
already,
yeah, and we've been going about an hour. There'll be more on the Jeff Sharlet's unethical, unjournalistic, manipulative, so-called reporting. We're going to have at least one more article because I got first-hand reports from multiple people. I know that one of the things I actually hope the Voice for Men audience does, anybody planning on attending the International Conference on Men's Issues 2015 should very carefully read Jeff Sharlet's article and should very carefully read, some of the coverage that was on places, some of the other coverage, like from the Washington Post and such. And remember, next time a reporter wants to talk to you, think twice, think 3 times. These people hate your guts, and they want you to look stupid if they possibly can.
And they want you to be hurt by somebody.
And they want you to be hurt. They want your life to be ruined. And so, those of us who do take these public stands, we're taking a risk, and we know it. Just remember, you're taking a risk anytime you talk to a reporter, no matter how friendly they are. Assume they hate you and are going to lie about you. It's the best solution.
Let me add something to that, Dean, too, that's real germane to this. There was reporting leading up to and just after the conference. I think some of it was in WAPO. I think a few other mainstream publications, Slate, Salon.com, reported that I issued a memo instructing people to be careful about what the media would do. And they were doing it in this air of, look, Elam is telling his followers to be on special behavior, and he's trying to pin it on the media who may be following around. Yeah, the same media that brought in 2 plants and sent them around to instigate as much trouble as they could to create and fabricate a story. So I will be issuing a similar warning before the next conference, pointing to the article by Jeff Sharlet to remind people just how fucking scummy you people are and just how much you are not to be trusted by anyone. We're going to, so that's going to be part of the deal.
I do want, we seem to have given...
Dean has frozen.
Oh, I thought it was me.
Yeah. No, it wasn't you. Dean is frozen up. He's changed connections.
I've frozen several times during the show. I apologize. Am I all right now?
Yep.
I wanted to return briefly to the story of Tony Abbott, the Australian Prime Minister, and Bill Shorten, the opposition leader, signing on to the He for She, I pledge to end all forms of discrimination and violence against women because that's gender equality. I actually saw a feminist saying, and actually this had to do with the Australian White Ribbon Campaign, bunch of frauds, by the way, but Tony Abbott said he'd be supporting the White Ribbon Campaign, and a feminist said, that's a good reason not to support White Ribbon. Like, you really can't do anything to please feminists. It can't be done. It never ends. No matter what you do, it's wrong. That's how these people work. That's all I wanted to say. Okay, any final closing thoughts, Paul Beatty?
Just a little story from Huffington Post that Leonard Nimoy was a feminist because he argued for better pay for him and Uhura and Walter Koenig, I think. So I think the whole gist of that article was, listen, you fucking nerds, even Spock was a feminist.
No, I can buy that Leonard Nimoy was a feminist. I guarantee you that Spock wouldn't have anything to do with that shit.
No, he wouldn't. And by the way, as a kid who grew up loving Star Trek, and I'll be 49 this year, so I'm old enough. That was part of my childhood. I cried when I heard Leonard Nimoy died. So, Paul, I am a nerd. I don't care.
I'm saving my my tears for Nichelle.
Okay, fair enough. Any closing thoughts, Paul Elam?
Yes, sir, I do. A couple of them. One, want to let everybody know that, again, we are in the build-up toward International Conference on Men's Issues 2, 2015, in Houston, Texas. Tickets will go on sale April the 2nd. Get them early, get them quick, because the way this goes is they'll start out at the lowest price we can possibly give them, and as we meet goals and budget and we get closer to the event, the ticket price will raise. So get in early to get your ticket at the lowest possible price. It's going to be an event that it's hard to imagine something better than last year. It was so amazing, but it is going to be better than last year. The other thing is that with apologies, I bring you this. Finally, letting everybody know these are being packaged as we speak. They will go out in the mail to you tomorrow. During the build-up to ICMI 1 in St. Clair Shores, we had death threats, and we had the Doubletree Hilton renege on a contract with us, all kinds of confusion, had to change venues, had to hire security. We had a special fundraiser. The community reacted in a way that was humbling, and what we promised $100 donors is that they would be getting these, and they will. This is good. This is one example of part of a 4-DVD set that is going to be mailed to those donors tomorrow. I want to apologize. I bit off a lot in saying that I could put all this together and make it happen, and here they are in my hot little hand right now, but it took a long time because I'm technically retarded. But we finally got these things together, and as you can see, we open them up. You will see the nice printed, they're all there ready to go. They're going out tomorrow, so with our thanks and apologies for how long it took, those will be going out, and if you don't receive yours within a reasonable amount of time, please write me directly at paul@avoiceformen.com. I will make sure, we got tons of them, I will make sure that you get your 4-set disc copies of the conference as quickly as possible. With that, I don't know if Dean is fully back. Are you back, Dean?
Oh, I'm back. I don't know what was wrong with my connection this show, sorry. I just thought I'd mention that Dr. Tara wants to be concentrating on her practice, so she probably will only be joining us now and then on Intelligence Report, but she'll still be doing Going Mental with Paul Elam, and of course you can always still seek out her services. If you're also looking for somebody and you're looking for support from a guy who knows what you're going through, please check out supportforguys.com and Paul Beatty's services. You may also hear him on Tom Likas every once in a while. And we will see you all on the next Intelligence Report. Next time you see me, new tooth, short hair. Peace out, everybody.